But okay, actually, without further ado, we do have the game up and running. Let me just set up the scores before we do introductions here, as Polt is up 1 in this best of 3. Welcome back, one and all, to the Home Story Cup North American Qualifier. This is, of course, our Home Story Cup 8, happening here at the end of the year. To explain quickly, before we do introductions, or of any sort, first place and second place both get invites to Home Story Cup, but first place wins an all-expense-paid trip, or something to that extent, to be flown out to Germany, and, well, who's going to say no to free flights, right? I'm Rifkin. Joining me now for Game 2 is actually formerly Quantum Gaming's Masan. I know, I'm so sorry, man. It's just habit. Months upon months of saying it the other way, but it is going to be the Zerg player, Grandmaster Masan himself. But spawning here in the upper right corner of the map, or upper left corner of the map, because I can't get anything right today, playing for CM Storm, it's going to be your Red Terran hero. Give it up for Polt.
And spawning in the bottom right position, Orange Protoss, Desrow.
And of course, Desrow sponsored by Asus, Polt sponsored by CM Storm. And one curious thing that we actually see here is Polt actually putting a supply depot at the top of his ramp. Out of hundreds of games I've witnessed, obs, cast, or even just watched on other streams, this is something he doesn't rarely do, and I think a lot of this is because he's expecting Desrow to hit him with a bit of an all-in here in Game 2. To explain the significance of this too, I guess, is typically, if you put a supply depot forward like this, it's very easy for a player like Desrow to come across the map with a stock or with a mothership core and kill the depot for free. Even if you have a bunker at the top of the ramp, you can outrange it, and you can be so irritating to have to deal with. And that's not something any Terran player wants to have to do, but if you're actually worried about your opponent coming at you hard, whether it's a Zealot, whether it's an actual 4-gate all-in, sometimes a wall-off is just a better thing to have.
Yeah, definitely. Interestingly, Polt going for Reaper?
Yeah, he's one of the few Terran players who still utilize Reapers. I think he's only going to go with one, though. It's very good for poke. He was able to do enough with it last game to constantly scout the base of Desrow, and Desrow didn't shut it down too easily, so not at all surprised that he goes for Reaper again in Game 2. But I like that Desrow's actually hidden the probe over here for now. He could have gone to the main, risked having it killed, but this will allow him to get a proxy pylon down without any issue later on. Meanwhile, in the base of Desrow, Polt getting a full scout off. Nothing really to see other than, of course, the lack of gas, meaning Desrow's probably got that expansion up, and he'll see this on the way out if he didn't see it on the way in. Yeah, confirms it. So Desrow going with a very similar opening to last game. I don't know how I feel about that, because so much of last game didn't exactly fall apart for Desrow. Like, he had everything going well to the end, and then Polt just managed to out-multitask him, I think is the best way to describe what happened. Because it's not like Desrow didn't have upgrades. He had an awesome upgrade lead. He had a great army composition, but as a Protoss player, you just can't split your army in half the same way that a Terran player can. Medevacs are really cool like that. And sadly, while I know there's no Zerg here at hand, Masan,
Yeah,
might as well just be solo casting.
Yeah. Oh god.
Well, we'll see what if we can grab you some Zergs later on. I don't know. You got to do warm up for Red Bull though. That much is for certain. But it looks like the Reaper almost getting picked off right away. Spots the Twilight Council. And this is kind of a big tell. This basically says Desrow's going to either go for Blank or Dark Templar. There's no reason to go for Charge-Led Archon in this sort of situation. At least not yet.
Not yet. Perhaps I've seen sometimes the Protoss when their Twilight Council is revealed, then they go for Charge-Led Archon. Because Terran players typically build up 3 bunkers and allows Protoss players to just give themselves a little bit of extra time they need to build up that storm.
Yeah, I really feel too, like, regardless of the matchup, like, if you're going for Charge-Led Archon at any point, it's more of like a blitz than an actual strategical play. Because very often or very rarely, I should say, do you see someone go like, alright, from 10 seconds into the game, I'm planning to go Charge-Led Archon. I guess maybe PvZ would be the only exception to that, but
Even in PvZ, it's really hard to do that.
Yeah, like I said, it's more of a blitz move than a really tactically planned move, but coming out here, swapping to the Robo Facility, I kind of like this out of Desrow. Whether he's planning to go for Blink or whether he was hoping to catch Polt off guard with DT is irrelevant now because he's going to have 3 bases, a lot of economy going for him, and he can quite frankly afford to do what he wants. But of course, I really do feel, end of the day, bottom line, upgrades in this matchup for both Terran and Protoss just supersede most tech choices. Armor versus Marines, weapons on those Marines, I mean, without either for either player, it's just so hard to come into an opponent's army, even if you're on equal footing.
So choice of the weapon is the Immoral Charge Lot, I guess? Or I'm not so sure, it could be Colossus at this stage, he's not making any Immortals additionally.
Well, it's definitely going to be Charge Lot. I mean, not only because he's investing in Charge, but he's actually going for the armor upgrades as well. Charge, of course, great against Marauders. Even if you got Stim, that Charge guarantees that you get at least a hit off. And Zealots, they only need to hit you once to do damage. They have so much attack on them.
Speaking of guaranteed hits on Charge Lot, you know that speed links on Creep is faster than Charge Lots?
Really? I had no idea.
So, yeah, they're slightly faster. So my curiosity is that...
if you started one charge as the Zergling's running away, if you could... Masan, we need to do some science later this week. Just make a custom game, spread creep everywhere, and I'll just research charge, and we'll do it for science, my friend. But looks like, yeah, you're right about the Immortal call. What Desrow's doing is going to be great against this initial Bioforce, but not right now. He doesn't have enough on the field for this. Photon Overcharge is going to be great, but with Stim on this army, he's going to knock down that Nexus before the Overcharge even kills half of it.
He desperately needs to turn over some units out right now. Thankfully, Militia Corps do have a 2 Photon Overcharge, so he can cast them in both Nexus, both natural and the third.
Yeah.
But here comes the Steam Army.
He's just gonna go
and
for
he
it.
doesn't react in time.
Yeah, the Overcharge goes down, but like I said, it's with Stim on this army, it's just so good, and knocking that Nexus down is really gonna cripple Desrow here. Not to the point, again, this isn't gonna take Desrow out of the game. That's 400 resources lost. He took that Nexus really early, and it sucks that it's gone, but what he's really got to worry about is the follow-up. Here come the medevacs, and if Polt starts dropping, these 3 bases are so spread out, there's just no way for Desrow to respond in time. And this problem right here, presented through these medevacs, this is why you're seeing a lot of players start adapting Phoenixes into the TVP matchup. They're so good at chasing down medevacs. They're faster than them, they shoot while moving, but Desrow without a starport, or sorry, Stargate rather, not gonna have any means to catch these. It's just gonna be forced to take fights head on. But okay, another Stim coming in here, should cancel this Nexus. Desrow, I'm believing in you, man. My Canadian enemy's cheering. Get that cancel off. Well played. But of course, Desrow also scouts the 3rd base coming down for Polt. There is a pylon down. It looks like, yeah, we got a couple Zealots moving up, but Polt with some Marines on patrol and move command, or sorry, attack command rather, are looking around for those proxy pylons. Despite the very awkward rallies, he will come into this one. And this poor Zealot doesn't stand a chance. In the meantime, investing in even more Zealots back at home is Desrow. I mean, this Bioforce is going to be so annoying for him to clean up. The Immortals, of course, have to worry about Stim. They can be charged upon so quickly by a big Bioforce. Force fields, I think, are going to be pretty key, but he's only got 2 sentries on the map. We do see the investment of Storms coming out here. What do you think, Masan? Storms versus Colossus. From an outside point of view, as a Zerg observing a TVP, which do you think's better?
Well, it depends on, against the non-ghost competition, definitely Storm's better, but... And against a Starport, earlier Starport, I think it's just better to go Templars. But the Polt Starports was late enough that I think either one could have worked. Either one would have been fine. The Storm, obviously, it works better on later stage of the game.
You know, it's really scary, too. A lot of people forget, by leaving this factory alive, I mean, Desrow's not going out of his way to kill it, and that's fine. It doesn't do any threat right now. But in the later game, when Desrow's coming up in Polt's base, Polt can just land this behind enemy lines, start making Hellions, start making Widow Mines, so it's really important that he doesn't leave this unattended for too long. Like, it's
I actually haven't seen that in a while.
Well, it works incredibly well, because what do you have? There's no cannons here, there's no observers. One Widow Mine can take out your worker line if you're not paying attention, but... looks like one of the Marauders will not actually go down. Zealot being backed off. I don't know why, I guess I forgot a guy could so shelled. Coward! But Polt coming up here. Again, another big Bioforce looking to hit this base. Mothership Core is not quite in position to overcharge.
Polt's just gonna drop on top of, or go straight into natural.
Yeah, again, these
And
small hit
Desrow's completely
squads.
off position.
And Desrow doesn't actually have the supply in the money bank right now to build a huge warp and reinforcement. And the Immortal's getting focused down. Storms will go down on this bio, but there's not a lot of charge lots left to buffer for these Immortals.
At the natural.
Yeah, it goes down. There are the Zealot warps I was talking about before. Looks like with some good kiting, though, Polt will keep a majority of these units alive. And this is where it starts to get rough for Desrow. As if it wasn't bad enough already, losing that third base early on, he's now down to 2 bases once again. He will clean up this base, though, as the Immortals do deal damage to Marauders quite nicely, but... Oh gosh, the probes. A Storm goes down out of desperation, but loses a Templar, loses more probes. Charge Lot's trying to run in to save this, but a boost will keep these units alive.
Wow.
Oh my goodness. Polt is just vicious, Masan. You've played him several times firsthand. I think you can attest to that.
Yeah, he's very, very aggressive in the majority of his plays. And, well, I honestly don't know what Desrow can do at this stage. Polt more than doubling army supply of Desrow. Although even worker supply is ahead.
If this was any other Terran player in the world, I'd say Desrow could bank on some good storms bringing him back into this, but I don't know. It's hard to catch Polt with storms. You gotta use a combination. Force fields, him being AFK, and like your own good storms to be able to do it, but... Coming in here for the third
down.
once again.
And Desrow again, completely out of position, and GG sad.
Yeah, good game, taps out. Little sad to see a fellow Canadian go out, but that will advance Polt forward in the brackets.